Hi, everyone. So I would just like to talk today about a subject that has come up recently on my social media, predominantly on my Telegram group. A few questions were asked about reincarnation, specific to different individuals. And this came up after a lot of discussion on the Madame Helena Blavatsky posts and video. And then the reincarnation topic moved into questions on Regenesis and Ascension, as there are a lot of people still trying to understand and process the Regenesis Ascension concept specific to the Juice Hijack program. So some of the questions go into that topic. So Regenesis and reincarnation are very intertwined but different, and we will get into that in this video. I do respond to the majority of these questions myself, but on a couple of occasions I do refer to the 9, and I will bring forward their response. So the first question is, Magenta, were Isaac Newton and Leonardo da Vinci of the light, or were they Cabal overlord? My reply, I have just checked photos of paintings of Newton, so I hadn't really looked at his photographs before. Classic Asperger's configuration, not Cabal overlord, but easily manipulated, sadly. A savant. So someone asked, what is classic Asperger's configuration? What does that mean? And I have responded to this in a previous video. It's just the configuration that I see within the individual's matrix fields and energy that show me that they would fit a diagnosis of Asperger's in modern day. And as I have said, when I've spoken about this previously, I see this as a blue-ray configuration predominantly, but not always. And as I've said before, not every person with a diagnosis of Asperger's syndrome is a blue-ray individual, and not every blue-ray individual has Asperger's syndrome, but they are intertwined, and predominantly they are mutually exclusive, but not in every case. A savant, so in case you don't know what that is, it's someone who is a genius in one specific area and may be quite unevolved or not very good at other parts of their lives. So that's a typical Asperger's configuration, where they are extremely good, almost at expert level, and a savant would be a genius. So Isaac Newton has that genius configuration, but all these other skills and typical lifestyle, skills are not that developed, and yet you have this savant genius in this one area. So no, he was not Cabal overlord, but easily manipulated, sadly, and was. Next question. Oh, sorry, Da Vinci. So that was Isaac Newton. I then went on to Da Vinci, and what I said about Da Vinci was, Da Vinci was of the light, but again was hijacked. However, he resisted this as much as he was able. He was a starseed and a genius. He left us many clues to ascension and enlightenment. So not Asperger's configuration. So genius would be across the board in multiple areas, like a polymath type of individual, without that savant spike of genius like Newton. He was a starseed. Yes, starseeds have been incarnating here for many years. He resisted that hijack as much as he was able, but he was hijacked. And any individual that presented in that genius style and had something to offer that could be inverted, manipulated, taken, utilized by that service to self structure would be. So many people get confused and think that just because someone has been involved within that overlord structure, that they are one. And that's not the case. That's not been the case throughout history, and it's not the case today. So Da Vinci was of the light. He was a starseed, so service to others, but he was hijacked, which he resisted. There's lots more I could say about Isaac Newton specifically and Leonardo da Vinci, but that wasn't really the subject of this particular topic. It was reincarnation per se, and these were just some of the questions that came in. I was then asked to look at multiple different people throughout history and in modern day, and I didn't respond to all of those because it takes time for me to, well, not time, I mean, I can look at a photograph and see instantly the configuration, but it takes time to go a bit deeper and focus on that. And as the statement, energy flows where attention goes, it's true. Where you focus, that's where that's what you align with if you are focusing. So when I work, I choose where I'm focusing because that will create an alignment of more information. So for example, if I wanted to look at a famous actress, for example, I would focus in on that actress. Now, if I spent many hours or several days focusing on that actress, then I'd have a lot of information open up there, which is great. But then there's all these other things that need looking at. So I can't spend too much time on different individuals that have existed throughout history or individuals that are here today, because ultimately my role is that of a collective energy worker and focusing on the galactic structure specific to Ascension and how that affects us here, looking at that in a dimensional system. So that's where my main focus lies. So I did answer these two, but I didn't go into a whole Q&A on every single individual I was asked to look at. Okay, so another question came in from that, and that was, Magenta, looking at the many portraits of Leonardo da Vinci, they all look very different. How can you decipher the energies when it's a painting and not a photograph? Because obviously the pictures of Leonardo da Vinci are paintings. Great question, really good question. So my reply was, I choose the painting that I feel is the most accurate representation of the person, which I will be able to see due to the amount of energetic substance that painting holds. A true artist can bring the person to life in a way a photograph cannot. A photograph is a visual likeness, but true art captures the energetic as well. So I will say, whilst a photograph is a true likeness, I can see the energetic by looking at the true likeness of the individual through the photograph. But the painting captures that energetic in a different way. There's more color, there's more emotion when that painting is done well. Once I look at the photograph or the painting, I just read the image as if I was standing next to the person. Their energy field opens up to me, just as if I was stood next to them in real life. So that's what happens. So if I was sat in the same room with someone, I'd be able to read them. But that same configuration of their matrix and their emotions and energy system, past, present, future, timelines, that all opens up to me through a painting, a good painting, a photograph, or if I'm looking at a planet or a solar system or an animal or trees, everything has that energetic configuration. And when you can see that and focus in on it, then you can read it within parameters. Okay, next question. Magenta, is Elon Musk the reincarnation of Nikola Tesla? And this is what I replied. From my observation and information, the answer to this is no. The energetic templates do not match. However, Elon Musk has taken inspiration from Nikola Tesla, shall we say. But he is not his reincarnation. A great many souls who incarnated as spiritually or scientifically influential individuals and were targeted in that lifetime one way or another will not reveal themselves in this current lifetime once their memories return. So this was very much the case when I spoke about Madame Helena Blavatsky. Many of these individuals, because they were targeted in previous lifetimes, and because the overlord structure understands about reincarnation, individualization, memory mapping, they will be looking for certain individuals who may be the reincarnation of individuals that they were involved with, and when those individuals stood as a threat to them or to their agenda. So there is a reincarnational hijack as well as an individual hijack with current lifetime incarnations. So anyone who has been someone like that, Nikola Tesla, Madame Blavatsky and others, they will not reveal themselves. Maybe more spiritual individuals who weren't necessarily seen as a threat in some way may not be targeted, but there are very many individuals throughout history that were targeted in previous incarnations. They've incarnated again in this reality, and many are here now for this planetary completion, end times. They won't reveal themselves as to who they are. Okay, next question. Magenta, is David Wilcock the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce? My reply was, I have responded to this one before. This is one occasion where the 9 actually confirmed this. And I see myself the matching templates. So the answer to this one is yes. David Wilcock is the reincarnation of Edgar Cayce without question. The reason why I say without question is the 9 very rarely confirm. They allow me to look and show me how to look, and I can base the reincarnational similarities and the matching templates on my own psychic site, but rarely do the 9 confirm, and they did confirm with this one. Now, it's my understanding that David Wilcock has never actually confirmed this himself. He's never said categorically, I was Edgar Cayce. A lot of people think he has said that. It's my understanding that he hasn't. What he said is research and whatever information suggests that this is the most likely probability. But I do not believe he's ever said, I was him. And I believe the book, which I haven't read, but there is a book all about David Wilcock being Edgar Cayce. I believe that was written by someone else. So this is my opinion through my communication with the 9. So I'm confirming it, but I do not believe to this day that David Wilcock has ever actually confirmed that. And I feel that he's very sensible to not confirm for the reasons which I have just stated. Okay, next question. Have we not had incarnations of every skin color and culture, most of us? Are our incarnations becoming more like one another the higher we go on our individualization journey? I have memories of being a whale. Surely we incarnate in other forms other than humanoid as well. And my reply here on social media was, well, the answers here are yes, yes, and yes. So I didn't embellish. So let's have a quick look. Have we not had incarnations of every skin color and culture, most of us? So yes, anyone going through this linear soul journey of individualization will have switched through different cultures and will have incarnated into all different types of individuals. But the next question is also important. Are our incarnations becoming more like one another the higher we go on our individualization journey? The answer is yes, because you get to a point where your individualization takes on a certain weight or mass within the antimatter realm. You're holding a lot of individualization. So you then tend to incarnate down your own bloodline. You also have more of a choice from the individual perspective of where your incarnation goes, rather than it being delivered to you via a higher self or higher dimensional guidance system. It's one and the same thing from the higher perspective, but from a linear perspective, it's different. So we start to incarnate down our own bloodlines. Predominantly, there are exceptions to the rule, and we start to incarnate into incarnations that match our soul blueprint, if you will. So we take on certain energy fields, and those energy fields manifest as emotion, and then the next stage to that is basically what you look like. And within that you can be in different cultures and have every skin color, every race, different genders. And within that, you start to resemble your previous incarnation, even if you were someone from a different culture and someone of the opposite gender. You start to resemble your previous incarnation, so that when you do reach a point where you have those memories intact, you can go back and you can actually match your own memories with the lifetimes of previous individuals, and find those individuals either through genetic research across your own bloodline, or through individuals that you specifically resonate with, that you feel you've got some kind of connection with. You look into that individual and find that there's a similarity there. And it's a similarity that I feel is really strong when that individual has actually come to a point where they're highly individualized, because individualization is a cumulative journey that creates more and more form and mass as you go through that journey. So individuals, for example, like David Wilcock, who has amassed a high vibration within that individualization, then you can see the similarities between Edgar Cayce and David Wilcock by looking at photographs. So the answer to that is yes. And then the next question, I have memories of being a whale. Surely we incarnate in other forms other than humanoid. So yes, we do, but there is a progression. Unlikely for an individual to be human and then move back into an animal, a series of animal kingdom incarnations on a linear level. On the non-linear, they're all happening at the same time. You're incarnated within all of those lifetimes along that progression simultaneously, in multiple different ways, right up to the point where you are everybody that's ever lived and everyone that will ever live. And that's the higher point of that picture. So on a linear level, you're usually animals in the animal kingdom before you move to human. However, there are exceptions to that as well, when there is, for example, someone who lived a lifetime very close to nature all the time and had moved away from the human existence, and say were living in the jungle with animals, they may then incarnate into that animal pack because they were so close to that animal pack in their incarnation. And that saying, energy flows where attention goes, is the same with our reincarnational line, which is why it's so important to know this, so that we don't sort of scatter our incarnations into realities, lifetimes that we don't necessarily need, and we may miss lifetimes that we may need more for our journey. When we get to the point of controlling our own incarnations from that conscious point, then the higher dimensional aspect steps back a bit and allows the individualized soul to start to choose their incarnations. So we need to understand what energy flows where attention goes means from the individual point of view in incarnation. And that is basically one of the lessons we learn within the final points of that individualization at planetary completion and end times and ascension. That's all part of that same point, which is where the starseeds are today. Okay, next question. Magenta, my question is about Vikings. I've always been a bit obsessed with them, the Norse gods and the Norse folklore. But lately I've become even more interested, and I can't stop watching and reading and learning about them. Of course, they have a terrible reputation for some things when viewed against the Saxons, but in my opinion, I think that's a bit distorted, as the Christian Saxons also did terrible things during the Viking incursions. Anyhow, it was really to ask if there is something now that is connected to the Viking male energy at all, as I'm having quite vivid dreams about the same. Now, although this question seems to be unrelated somewhat to reincarnation, it's not really when you look at my reply. But when I'm talking about focus, what you focus on, energy flows where your attention goes, that's what's occurring for this individual. She's become very interested in Vikings and Norse folklore to the point where she can't stop watching, reading, and learning about them. So she's focusing in on that. Now, is the focus itself causing the information to come to her? Or is her past knowing drawing her towards the focus? Well, it's both, as they are two sides of the same coin. My reply to this was kind of going around about the houses with this reply to deliver to this individual who asked the question a more centralized point for her research that is linked to her as a soul, as I was reading her energy. So my answer to this question might be very different depending on who asks it. So this answer is tailored to the questioner. Vivid dreams is likely your pre-incarnate life recall, which is happening now to so many ascending souls. The only information I have from the nine regarding Vikings and Norse culture and Norse folklore and everything that the individual is asking about, the only information I have from the nine is regarding the Marvel films about Thor. When I was watching the films about Thor, the nine told me that this was based on truth. Midgard, Middle Earth, really does exist within other planetary systems. That rainbow bridge to Midgard, like in the film, all true. The Vikings were seeded by extraterrestrials from this planetary system. Midgard, Middle Earth is one of the names for them. And the DNA memory codes have remained within the individuals who have had incarnations in that planetary system and come here to Earth, which is this individual who's asking the question, because I could see that. I feel it's significant to tell you, as this awakening is what is occurring within you. This could be other planetary incarnational recall rather than the Viking period on Earth, which is what I am feeling. That's why she's drawn to this, because the symbology of the Vikings is the seeded result of her incarnation where she's from. When you look in the linear level and you're looking at the past, obviously this is existing now in the true reality. If you haven't seen the Thor films, then watch them, as memory codes are in there. So the Thor films are showing memory codes deliberately from those involved with the creation of these films. And this can be coming in from a service to others line, wanting to trigger and catalyze individuals into memory. And this can also be coming in from a service to self line, which is the concept of letting them know what we are doing. That is done because it's part of the overall mission that they have. And if they want to succeed in their mission, they must do this. They must be seen to deliver information to all the other selves, because the individuals in that service to self structure at the spiritual levels are aware of how this goes and what must be done. So this can come in from both lines. And the key codes and the catalysts are for this memory of Midgard, Middle Earth, and this sort of extraterrestrials that are similar to our Vikings, that seeded the Vikings. This is all really important for now, because we are entering a time period where our true history is going to surface. It already has, sort of in the back door truth arena, but it's going to start filtering into the minds of the mainstream as well. So this is quite significant. And I will also add that there are other films and other forms of literature that will trigger different memory systems from different planetary systems that are seeded by that culture in an extraterrestrial sense. So, for example, the Egyptians and Egyptian artifacts, Egyptian symbolism, that's seeded from the Syrian line, from Sirius, and the Egyptian symbolism is very much intergalactic and throughout the multiverse, as is this sort of Viking Thor type of extraterrestrial as well. So these are all catalysts that are within humanity as a whole, and within many individuals that are awakened starseeds that have had lifetimes and incarnations outside of Earth, and that seeds and triggers the memory so that they go through that awakening period. Because the true awakening is not just about what's been happening on Earth. The true awakening is a galactic awakening. It's a cosmic awakening and a spiritual awakening. It's awakening of memory right through that sort of line from Earth and beyond. So that's why these things are coming up right now. Okay, next question. Magenta, just because someone reincarnates from a service to others individual, does that automatically make that individual, the reincarnated one, a service to others individual? Or do they take on a whole new persona, as in a slate wiped clean? And my reply is, depends if they are moving through individualization or regenesis. With individualization, if they're service to others, they will always reincarnate as service to others. Regenesis does wipe the slate clean. So that depends and is individual to the new soul. The goal for any soul here today is individualization, ascension, not regenesis. But regenesis is, of course, offered through choice points, and it is the one main choice point, which we know is the juice hijack as the choice point. So yes, once you polarize, you don't just polarize in your current incarnation, and then when you reincarnate, think, oh, I'll be service to self next time. Your soul is polarizing. Your matrix field is polarizing, which is why I say that in response to one of the earlier questions, that as we go forward through reincarnation and gather this mass within individualization, we start to resemble our incarnations more and more. We start to move down that same bloodline and find similar incarnations and have a similar physical look about us. That's because individualization is creating an individual soul construct that's far bigger than just the one incarnation. And right now we're at planetary end time. So the star seeds are coming to the end of that individualization. This is the last lifetime for the star seeds in this particular linear journey. So the choice now is, do we go this way or do we go this way? Have we not quite accumulated enough mass charge to be able to hold that individualization and hold all those memories? In which case we aren't going to be able to carry that soul structure through this movement into the next octave of reality. So it will be a regenesis path. Or if we have held enough charge, enough mass within that matrix, then we're able to go through an ascension process. So this isn't just about what we look like, it's also about our polarization. If we polarize within the positive, that stays within the matrix, that stays within the soul. The soul holds the matching configuration, and that part of the matrix remains through incarnation after incarnation after incarnation. So a soul wouldn't go back to service to self, if you want to look at that as a backward step. It's a sideways step, really, as a polarity rather than a backward step, but it certainly can be viewed that way from service to others' point of view. And it'll be the same with service to self. Once they're polarizing, they're not going to be born as service to others in the next incarnation. They will control where they go because they have the mass and the charge in a different way to service to others' souls to be able to do that. So it's only with Regenesis where the slate is wiped clean, if you will, and it's a new beginning. There isn't any polarization there. It's back at the beginning and a new start, a new chance, but it's the same goal: ascension, individualization. It's always that goal. That's the way souls are drawn into that, because that is the, if you will, return to source, or the memory becoming omnipresent. That's what that means, remembering everything. As a soul, we only go through amnesia to go through certain experiences. And the goal of that experience is to remember. And then we start to accumulate the memory. So that's the return to source pathway. Okay, so next question. Magenta, when you die, how long does it take a soul to be able to connect back to us? And I mean through mediumship. I realize this is a black and white question and there may be many offshoots to the answer. So the question is, how long does it take for a soul to be able to connect back to humanity through a medium? And my reply was, they would need to transition from linear time experience to non-linear time, and it will depend on the individual as to how long that takes. Time is only experienced this way in living incarnation, however, and everything becomes instantaneous once the memories come back. It's different with ascension, though, as memory recall and life review takes place from incarnation. So ascended souls would be able to communicate prior to, during, and after transition. So it depends on the soul and their level of connection to that medium. So a soul that hasn't gone through ascension would go through this transition from linear time to non-linear time, getting that memory back before they then progress forward to be able to connect with a medium, because they're still experiencing a linear time until they move into non-linear. You have to be in non-linear time to be able to jump back to connect with a medium, because the medium would be in the past and you would be in the future, because once you've passed through the death experience, you're fourth dimensional, which is in the future to the third dimension, unless you are in a state of ascension, because you already will have done that in your incarnation. So you'll be able to communicate with a medium as you're transitioning, prior to your transition, as you're transitioning, and immediately after. So it depends on the soul and their ability to hold non-linear consciousness. And that is the same for someone who is living or someone who is not. Magenta, if someone holds soul fragments from being a previously service to others beautiful soul in previous cycles, wouldn't that create a lot of internal conflict and prevent polarization to service to self in subsequent incarnational cycles? So a little bit of a fragmented question here. If someone holds soul fragments from being a previously service to others beautiful soul in previous cycles, wouldn't that create a lot of internal conflict and prevent polarization to service to self in subsequent incarnational cycles? So I think I know what this person is asking. Basically, if you've been service to others in many cycles and then you become suddenly service to self, wouldn't that create a lot of internal conflict and prevent your polarization? Well, the answer to that is yes, because of what I've previously discussed. That doesn't happen. You can't polarize as service to others, polarize within the positive, and then suddenly accumulate a negative matrix from somewhere. That doesn't happen on a linear level. It's not the journey of the soul. Anyway, let's look at my reply. I actually answered this question as if they were talking about regenesis. Okay, let's just hear my reply. Regenesis is a total reset. So soul fragments would not be carried into the new incarnation. It's a total beginning again. If the new soul chooses service to others, as the majority do, then memories could be eventually accessed along the soul's journey. That's a whole other issue, and I'll try and break that down. If that soul chooses a service to self pathway, then it's unlikely they would recall previous memories through that journey unless they were fully able to not be influenced by them. It's very complex, but basically they begin again as a brand new soul on a brand new planet. They may not even have that kind of polarity in their new incarnation, infinite possibilities. So yes, through Regenesis, they may incarnate on a third dimensional planet that doesn't have the same polarity. They may incarnate in a different universe. This universe holds that polarity. They may incarnate into a universe that doesn't hold that polarity, depending on where that soul chooses to begin their inception point on a linear level. So when I answered the question just now, I'm answering it as if they're asking about reincarnation, as in, if they hold soul fragments from being previously service to others. Well, you wouldn't hold a soul fragment from being previously service to others. If you have polarized as service to others, you wouldn't have any fragments. You wouldn't be fragmented. You would be cohesive. You would be a cohesive one soul. If you hold soul fragments, then that would mean you haven't polarized yet. However, if the majority of the soul is within that service to others frequency, then you're going to continue to individualize upon that path. Yes, it would create a lot of internal conflict, and that would prevent polarization to service to self in subsequent incarnational cycles. But it isn't just that causes, that prevents polarization to STS in subsequent cycles. What causes that is you've started to polarize, you've started to accumulate within the matrix, within the individualization of the soul. So you wouldn't switch. It's a completely different and opposing pathway. So that's how I answered that question just now. But when I look at my reply that I posted on social media, I replied as if the person was asking about regenesis rather than reincarnation itself. So when it comes to regenesis, you wouldn't carry any soul fragments into a new incarnation at all. The slate is wiped clean. It's a total beginning again. If the new soul chooses to move through a service to others pathway and polarize, as the majority do, and that's the case in a universe with the polarity that we hold in this universe, it is different laws in different universes, but in this universe, if the new soul chooses service to others, they will be part of the majority. The majority choose that path. Then memories could eventually be accessed. So that's true, but that would not be done through individualization. It would be done through getting to a point where that soul is able to access fifth dimensional consciousness, and they would then access the morphogenetic field. They would then access full memory. And from that point of view, once they've got to that accumulated consciousness level, they may be able to accumulate memories from who they were before Regenesis. That's complex because when a soul goes through Regenesis, they're not the same soul because they haven't individualized. So if they try to accumulate memory from one specific individualized soul that they were part of before Regenesis, that's not possible because they would actually be part of multiple souls. Because it's almost like when a soul goes through Regenesis, they move back into a oneness, and then new pieces are taken from the oneness. So the only way that you could accumulate your memory would be through morphogenetic field mapping, which is the mapping of the field, and access collective memory that way. So nothing is lost. It's always given back to you, but you have to move through this progression and ascension, meaning raising and raising and raising and accumulating more and more mass in that individualization pathway. When you get to fifth dimensional consciousness, that's when you can access the morphogenetic field. You can access the morphogenetic field in part through higher, upper, fourth dimensional consciousness, but predominantly you'd need to be fifth dimensional to access the memories. So that's really complex, but it shows that nothing is lost. Nothing is lost within the overall picture. But that doesn't mean that we can say to ourselves, oh, well, it's okay to take this juice, not ascend, go through Regenesis, because eventually I'll be able to access my memories again. Because that's not the desire and the choice of the overall soul for every service to others, individual and to a degree service to self, but their path is different. Our aim is to live the blueprint, the original blueprint, which is always individualization and ascension. So yes, complex, and would need to present to the nine really to respond to that. Really great question though. Really great question. Okay, next one. Magenta, does the soul choose Regenesis? Or is it that the soul never chooses Regenesis and the personality didn't hear the soul calling? So people fell into the manipulation through fear. So this one has actually been answered in other questions. It's the same question that's been previously answered. So I haven't answered this individually. Does the soul choose Regenesis? So on a multidimensional level, from the higher perspective, no soul chooses Regenesis from the point of view of the evolutionary path. However, the soul will choose Regenesis when that evolutionary path is no longer available to that soul. That's not necessarily, if you will, a choice. That's a cycle that is automatic. It's like saying, does the fish choose to swim down this river? If the fish is still and the river is moving and the fish is allowing itself to be carried by the current, does the fish choose to be carried by that current? maybe that's not the best metaphor, but basically what I'm saying here is the river is flowing anyway. The fish is going to go in that direction. So Regenesis is part of that flow. It's a choice, as is everything from the higher perspective. But when you're looking at the choices made when it comes to evolution, which every soul is drawn towards because that's the flow of the river, then no soul will choose Regenesis from that point. They will all choose Ascension. They only choose Regenesis when Ascension is no longer possible because they haven't got to the point where they're able to ascend. They have to think, no, I didn't make it this time. I've got to go back and do it again. And that again is only one perspective within this overall complex multidimensional field. And it is difficult to explain because it's a unity. And you have to break the unity down to see all these different perspectives within the unity, because everything comes from a convergence point, which is not one reason, it's multiple reasons. It's multiple beginnings for everything. You can't say, oh, the reason for this is because of that, because the reason for this is because of all of these, and they come together in these convergences within this map of your reality. So is it that the personality didn't hear the soul calling? Well, yes. I mean, not hearing the soul calling, I guess, is the same thing as intuition and alignment, understanding alignment and intuition. So no, they didn't vibrationally align with intuition. They didn't allow intuition to come forward, either through their own repression of that, because of hijacks and manipulations. This is a hijack reality, and people have trauma from childhood that they've got to work through to even get to a point where they can raise to the fifth dimension. You can't raise fifth dimensionally in balance if you have all of this trauma. So people fell into the manipulation through fear. Well, yes, that is what happens, because fear being the opposite polarization to love. So love is the predominant polarization within the positive service to others. Fear is the predominant polarization within the negative service to self. So that is correct. So I didn't actually write an answer to that on social media, but I did save the question because it's part of this same topic, but it's been answered before. That question was just asked in a different way. So next question. So if the goal for any soul here today is individualization, ascension, does that mean on a soul level that they wouldn't have taken the juice, as the juice being a choice point? If the goal is individualization and ascension, does that mean on a soul level that they wouldn't have taken the juice? And obviously the answer to that is yes, that is what it means. Let's have a look at my reply. Yes, this is exactly what this means. From a soul level, they would not have taken the choice point for Regenesis, and they would not have taken the juice. Every soul who took the juice knows at intrinsic, deep, cellular levels that the choice to take the juice was not in alignment with the ascension path and the pre-incarnate blueprint. No matter how much they may profess that they made the correct choice, they know that this is not the case. Many know at quite a conscious level and felt that they were manipulated into doing so, which is true, but doesn't change the pathway into Regenesis, except for the very rare few, which has been discussed many times previously from myself and the 9. So this is a good question here. Even though it's been touched upon in my previous answers, if the goal for any soul here today is individualization, ascension, does that mean on a soul level they wouldn't have taken the juice? So I've replied to this, but I did actually turn this one over to the 9 as well, because I wanted further clarification, because a lot of people are listening to the information I'm putting out about Regenesis and not quite grasping that concept. Others grasp it immediately, and that's great, but others are not quite grasping it. Now, it seems that I might be the only spiritual teacher out there teaching about Regenesis. The 9 have said that's not correct. It's the word the 9 use, regenesis, hasn't been used before in this context. We all use different terminology and we draw down different terminology from our guidance system when we're communicating with them. But the concept of not moving into an evolution, accumulating memory, or being able to, has been, according to the 9, delivered in multiple different ways, always as part of our spiritual teachings. I'm not aware of any, but the 9 are saying that there are. I do believe that possibly Dolores Cannon may have delivered information that is similar to this, with the sort of metaphor of you either go with the planet and ascend, or you will live out your life on another 3D planet. That's basically Regenesis. It's the same thing. But I haven't looked into that work enough deeply, but she's the only person I can think of that may have presented this in a way. But Regenesis is specifically being used from the 9 to explain this. And the reason why that is because they say Genesis means life. It is the seeding of life. The Genesis is the creation, and Regenesis is you doing it again. You are seeding life again. You are going back into the creation again, just like a re-upload of a video. You're regenesizing your matrix. You are redoing it again. You're back into the creation. That's why they use the word regenesis, because the words they use are the most appropriate matches for the energies that they want to convey to me in alignment with my own fields of understanding when it comes to language. So that's the reason. So I have presented this question to the 9, and this is what they said. From the linear perspective, we can address this quest as in truth, the soul level is quantum, fractal, multidimensional, and infinite. So yes, indeed, at soul level, in the context you use the term, juice choice point would always be declined, as the goal for every incarnated soul is ascension. Specifically in your now time period, the goal would be ascension. For you are within the window of opportunity that is known as completion or planetary end times. The predominant mission point or goal for every soul is polarization. Into the positive for ascension and into the negative for descension, or 5D negative, inverted reality density domain. Or for the very rare few, neutral. Those unpolarized are those most at risk for hijacking into a manipulated choice point. The choice point is presented by the negative faction as a positive act, and by the positive faction as a negative act. The discernment, belief system, and intuition within the non-polarized is then either exercised or buried, ignored, and the choice is made from the physically incarnated consciousness in real time. We are the white-winged collective consciousness of 9. So I'm not going to pick that to pieces entirely, but what I would like to just present here is how the 9 have delivered what the choice point actually is and how it's presented to each individual. It's presented by the negative faction as a positive choice. It's presented by the positive faction as a negative choice. So the negative faction will always present that which is inverted, because that is what feeds their agenda. The positive will present the truth of the real agenda. So the individual within their unpolarized reality are receiving 2 feeds, a negative feed and a positive feed. And it depends on how much they are, how far they are into their alignment, their discernment, and their intuition, and the ability to see signs and synchronicity as to which they take. So on a surface level, looking at surface reality, looking at reality as being okay, not seeing any hijack, then the positive move will be to take the juice, which is really a negative choice, but they haven't seen that far enough. Those who do see more, who are more in touch with the intuition, more in touch with the belief system, they have better discernment, and they are aware of signs and synchronicities, then they will see the negative act for what it is and realize the positive behind it. So this is the choice, negative and positive. And it's like, well, it's switched because what's presented as negative on the surface is actually positive. What's presented as positive on the surface is actually negative. That's what the 9 are saying as to how the individual is given that choice point. It's like a double feed, and both of them switched. And the idea is to, if you are in full alignment with the ascension path, you'll see through the layers and always find the truthful one behind. That's what's happened. So we can't really be angry with those who make this choice, because how can you be angry with someone for not having accumulated mass or fire or charge? How can you be angry with someone for not moving through that journey? That's where they are in that journey. And I know that that's a tough one for those that are awake to understand, but some do. Okay, next question. If so that must be going back to the previous question. If the goal for any soul here today is individualization, does that mean that on a soul level, they wouldn't have taken the juice? So we're going down to the next part of that question. If so, where are we? If so, then on a personality level, because of free will, they chose the juice. And therefore, their soul goes on to the path to regenesis. So yeah, I mean, I've discussed this over and over in multiple different ways. And as I've said, there are people who are not grasping this concept. So I really hope that this video will assist, because I am being inundated with questions now about this concept coming in from all social media and email. And so I really hope this video, which has gone into real depth with this topic, I really hope this has answered your questions. So if so, on a personality level, and by that they mean a incarnated level, because of free will, they chose the juice. And therefore their soul goes on to the path to regenesis. And remember that we have this positive and this negative. So positive is juice is a positive thing because it's going to eradicate kooky, and kooky is bad. So that's the surface level positive. Negative, saying juice is bad, that's rejected, because when you are looking at the premise, the false premise within the what appears to be positive coming from the negative faction, you are doing something good for the collective. So you will reject this as nonsense and untrue. So be aware of that when you're looking at the choice that is made at that level. It's only when you move above the personality level and come into higher thinking, critical thinking, spiritual awareness, etc., that you can see these layers. And even spiritual awareness is not enough on its own. There are individuals that have great spiritual understanding, but they have not balanced that with grounding into reality. And they still don't see the hijack. They're still being drawn into what they believe to be a positive choice, and they don't realize the negative behind it. And they are the individuals who will say, my guides told me to take the juice. I was guided into taking the juice. That's because they haven't grounded the awakening. So they're up here in 5D without any grounding in 3D. So I have a lot of questions as to why would this spiritually aware person take the juice? Why is this yoga teacher taking the juice? Why is this Reiki master taking the juice? That's the reason why. they haven't grounded and anchored the spiritual awakening. They've gone upwards and upwards and upwards into the beauty and the love, and have not anchored these lower chakra points, if you will, if you want to use that phrase, or they have not balanced the downward move within that matrix, which is your life, your reality. And that's the left brain, if you want to look at it as a brainwave function. They're in the right brain and they haven't balanced the left brain. So they can't see beyond the surface. They can see the spiritual, the love, the unconditional love, the healing, but they don't see the hijack. That's something that isn't seen because they have an open heart, but they have not really worked with the lower three chakras. So anyway, my reply to that, if so, then on a personality level, because of free will, they chose the juice, and therefore their soul goes onto the path to regenesis. And my reply was, this is indeed correct. Free will is afforded all souls, and it is their choice to either complete the intended blueprinted mission or to change the blueprint, if you will, and move through the regenesis pathway, as I've just discussed. Okay, so this is an interesting one. Someone said here, I understand from your video about Amadeus and Granada that we all pass to ascension at the same time. So the video they're talking about here was uploaded in September of 2021. It is a channel transmission from the 9. And the title of this video is Apple Juice as Exit Point from 26,000 Year Ascension Cycle. So if you want to understand what is being said here, and you really want to grasp the concept of what is being said here, because it's a multidimensional concept, then if you listen to that channeling from the 9, in that video, Apple Juice as Exit Point from 26,000 Year Ascension Cycle. And the example of two souls, Amadeus and Granada, is given. So these are group souls, not individual incarnated humans. These are group soul entities, as in the soul. We have Amadeus and Granada. And they use this example to explain how, from the higher perspective, from the multidimensional perspective, from the nonlinear perspective, that we all pass to ascension at the same time. That's because there is no time in that reality. So the answer to that, and my answer to that, or the 9's answer to that, is from the multidimensional perspective for all souls, this is correct. So all souls pass to ascension at the same time from that perspective. This is the perspective held by 5th dimensional souls and above. From a 3rd and 4th dimensional perspective, this is not the case. From that perspective, others will ascend and they will not. So if you are holding 3rd dimensional consciousness and 4th dimensional consciousness, except maybe the highest echelons of the 4D, but predominantly throughout 3D and 4D, there is linear time experienced. It's experienced differently in 4D than 3D, but it's a form of linear time in 4D, and it's totally linear time in 3D. So the perspective is, from a soul point of view, when they are looking at individualization of that soul, the perspective is they've ascended and I have not. But that's prior to that ascension point and only at a soul level. That will change once they go through regenesis because they are at that rebirth point. So the ascended souls are not in their mind at all, for they begin again. And from that point of view, everything is fresh, everything is new, everything is forgotten from the reality previous, the last grand cycle. It's only when they get back to 5D within the new cycle that they'll remember, oh, we've been through multiple grand cycles since the beginning of time, because there is no beginning of time. It's just cyclical, 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 over and over and over. So yes, if you want to understand this better, then have a look at that video, Apple Juice as Exit Point, from 26,000-year ascension cycle. But I will say, after doing that transmission, I also got a ton of questions from people who still did not get this concept. Even though the 9 used this as an example, I still had people who didn't get it. And I understand that to think multidimensionally, to think bilocationally from 2-dimensional points, I understand that that's not easy to do. It is for some people because we have learned to expand the mind in that way. So we think that way all the time. But there are many ascending individuals who are star seeds coming into this information that are being given 5th dimensional and multidimensional knowledge that they are having to interpret through 3D. And it won't compute. There's no way that you can interpret multidimensional concepts with a 3rd dimensional consciousness. You will always hold a pattern that either doesn't make sense at all, or you will latch on to a belief or a translation, and it will be incorrect, and you will then have incorrect opinions of that information that's being given to you, which is going to happen. And that's what's been happening since the beginning of time, from religious teachers and spiritual teachers, because everything, the truth always comes from the multidimensional. So after I had many questions after that particular transmission, I tried to explain this in an even simpler way. And I did a little sort of video just filmed on my phone, and that went onto social media. And that helped people to grasp the concept. They were saying things like, oh, finally, I get it. So I'm going to insert that now because I haven't posted that on YouTube. That's just been on social media. So this is the little clip that I'm talking about. So I'm just going to explain the concept that was presented in the recent transmission from the 9 about the juice being an exit point, choice point from the 26,000-year ascension cycle. So I've got 2 angels here, little candle holders, that are representing these group souls. So here we have Amadeus and we have Granada. So these are not human incarnations. These are angelic souls, group souls, logos souls that are individualized consciousness structures that are about to enter a 26,000-year ascension cycle. So it's very simplified, the 9 explained, and there's far more complexity than just what's being shown here. This is just a really, really basic teaching to explain what's going on when it comes to the different perspectives and the different time experiences of time that we go through as a soul. So here we have Amadeus and here we have Granada. So Amadeus and Granada are entering a 26,000-year cycle. Amadeus has decided that he is going to ascend at the end of that 26,000-year cycle, and Granada has decided that he is not going to ascend, that he's going to do the 26,000-year cycle, not ascend, and then do another one. Obviously that choice point is made at that point, but on another level it isn't, because the choices are made throughout the 26,000 years. So the choice at the beginning is the same choice at the end because it's the same time. That's part of the complexity, and that's not really in this basic teaching that was in the transmission. So let's just go through this. So here's Amadeus, here's Granada, and they enter into a 26,000-year cycle of multiple incarnations. So there they are, they're going along the 26,000-year cycle. When they get to the end times, which is now, so from Amadeus's perspective, this is what happens. They go into the 26,000 years, they do all their multiple incarnations, and at the end of that cycle, they both ascend. That's what happens. That's what happens. So when anyone says to you, all souls are going to ascend, they are right from that perspective. Because Amadeus is ascending, therefore, from his perspective, all souls are ascending. There's no time. Amadeus is in 0 point. But this is what happens from Granada's perspective. So they enter into the 26,000 year cycle, off they go, off they go, off they go, do all their multiple incarnations, and at the end times, at the choice point, at the singularity, when everyone makes that choice, Amadeus ascends along with others, and Granada doesn't. Granada goes back round and does it all again. So that's from his perspective, which is a linear perspective. That's why this choice point is so crucial, because from the perspective of the true reality, every soul has chosen to do this, because that's the path of the soul. But you make choices from the physical perspective when you go through ascension, as well as the spirit perspective, because you're connected. So at the end of the cycle, you can choose to do this or choose to do this, but you are only redoing this in linear. You are not redoing this in 0 point. So from anyone's perspective who's ascending, everyone's ascending with you and you're with them. So all your juiced friends and family are with you from the perspective of your ascension. From their perspective, you have left. But that's the choice that they made through all these multiple opportunities throughout the 26,000 years. And then you could go into the philosophy, is there a right choice or a wrong choice? Well, from one perspective, no. There is no right or wrong. It's simply the choice you've made. But from another perspective, well, yes, because every soul has chosen to go through ascension. That's what this whole 26,000 year cycle is about, so that you can choose to ascend at the end of it in a linear, human, physical incarnation choice. So have the people who are juiced made the wrong choice from that perspective? Well, yes, again, wrong and right is subjective, but it isn't the choice their soul wanted to make. So I'll leave that to the individual, because that's philosophy. And you can, say yes or no to that question. But that is basically what the 9 were coming across with in this transmission. Amadeus, Granada. From Amadeus's perspective, they do this. And from Granada's perspective, they do that. Okay, thank you. Right, so I hope you understand that concept a bit more now. I hope that's been explained a bit more simply. I know it's not a simple concept to grasp, but that's basically what is being said here by the 9. That's the example they gave in that transmission. And so when you hear a spiritual teacher say, oh, well, you can ascend if you take juice. It's not going to affect your ascension. You will still be able to ascend. That's true from that higher perspective, because that cycle doesn't exist from that higher perspective. It's everyone's ascending, just like in the Amadeus and Granada example. But what needs to be taken into consideration, and I think a lot of spiritual teachers aren't seeing the multidimensional scale, what they're not seeing is the linear journey being affected. And it's very important that we see the linear experience just as much as the multidimensional experience. Ascension is about integration. If we want to go through Stargate Ascension, that is the understanding and the processing of all of these different dimensional scales and the understanding of unity. We can't understand unity without understanding these different points. So we break everything down into these compartmentalized aspects in order to create the unity. You can't have true unity without understanding the compartmentalized aspects, because you're only seeing unity alone. You're not seeing what unity really is, which is a unified field of multiple compartmentalized aspects. It's a hexagonal grid, as has been explained to the 9 from the 9 previously in my video about the black umbrella. Unity is explained through what I've just said in that video. So next question. So the personality aspect overrides the soul blueprint choice for this lifetime of ascension, individualization. But from a broader perspective, the soul still ascends eventually in inverted commas. So soul blueprints can be overridden at any time by free will. That's the question. And my reply to that is, all souls here now, incarnated to experience ascension and individualization, those choosing Regenesis did not fulfill that divine mission from a linear point of view and get another chance. They get another chance. You cannot individualize unless you hold soul memory. And you need blue starfire, quantum convergence charge, DNA charge to do that. Juice is designed to prevent that. That's what it's designed to do. That's the ultimate reason for juice. It's designed for that. There are multiple reasons for juice. It's a convergence like everything else. But one of the main reasons is to prevent your ascension. So from a linear point of view, it isn't true that you can ascend if you have taken juice, because juice is there to prevent your ascension. And it does this via damping down the energy in the cells and changing the DNA instructional sequencing. And it does it via inserting AI consciousness and all sorts of ways. But it's designed to prevent your DNA charge. It's designed to prevent you holding charge and holding memory, because part of the service to self polarization is preventing, this is a difficult one, part of service to self understands and respects ascension through service to others pathways. And whilst the service to self negatively polarized individuals respect those individuals that are polarizing positive, they respect them at soul level. But at incarnated level, their role, they believe, is to prevent that. Otherwise, they won't be able to create the descension reality or this negative density domain that they are creating. So they also have a multidimensional, or rather a bilocational viewpoint. They respect at higher level, but at the physical level, at the linear incarnated level, their role is to prevent, because they are creating this negative domain. And so they need to have a predominant negative energy field, if you will, in this timeline on this planet at planetary end times, whereas we are creating a predominantly positive timeline at planetary end times. So that's the real reason. That's the most predominant reason. It's all about our evolution. It's multidimensional. It spans multiple lifetimes, which is why our true history has been repressed and hidden. Because if we knew about our true history, we would never have gone to sleep in the first place. But now it's time for that to surface. So I went on to say that this is a really great question. And the answer to this is somewhat yes. But for more context here, as I've spoken to the 9 regarding this, the 9 say the original soul blueprint lays out all potential timelines that could be enacted or triggered based on the potential for that soul to make a certain choice. So the moving away from an ascension individualization blueprint is actually part of the original blueprint. So the moving away from is interwoven into the blueprint as a potential. Guidance will always lead the incarnate soul into individualization, but that runs alongside free will. So due to free will, the blueprint is, let's say, shifted or changed. Now, the blueprint itself, the organic blueprint, is a living structure. It's a living field with intelligence, and it can move and shift accordingly to the choices made by the incarnate soul. It's actually your DNA, which is a living consciousness. So yes, it's the personality aspect making the free will choice, but the pre-incarnate blueprint is not overridden. And this is how the questioner perceived this to be overriding the pre-incarnate blueprint, that free will overrides that. No, free will doesn't override it, as the original potential to choose regenesis is part of the original blueprint, albeit outside of alignment and outside of higher guidance. So the whole thing is part of the blueprint. It's not overridden, it's just shifted down a pathway that higher guidance wouldn't have guided you to, if you will. Okay, so next question. This is a good one. Magenta, don't souls know the risk before incarnating? It seems like such a huge risk to those who are unaware. And my reply was, all higher dimensional souls are fully aware of the possibility of getting caught up in the third dimension when they incarnate. Those caught in the forced reincarnational wheel may not be aware, as that level is fourth dimensional. However, whilst you can call it a risk, it is indeed a risk from one perspective. Another more accurate way of putting it rather than risk is it's just the way it is when one does not hold memory. So going back to that analogy again of flowing down the river, does the fish know the risk that the river is going to flow one way when the fish starts swimming in the river? It's kind of the way it is. That's what happens. If you don't hold memory, if you're unable to hold the charge for the memory, that's what happens, because it's part of that organic cycle. So what the risk is incarnating into the third dimension per se, knowing that you might have had multiple lifetimes of individualization. You're on that path. Every single time you incarnate into 3D, of course, you can get caught up in 3D and not remember. But the higher you go, or the more mass you accumulate as a soul, the more codes and keys you have, and they start triggering you from birth. You'll get triggered by television programs, your toys, your nursery school teacher, your parents, your friends. The triggers will come in because you've already held that accumulated memory field. It's there with you in your DNA, and it's there as a personal, real-time guidance. I've likened this before to the film Superman, the original film Superman, where Clark Kent throws the little crystal into the ice, and this huge crystal palace is built, just comes from nowhere. And if he takes certain crystals, he can speak in real time to his mother and his father, and they teach him everything that they know. That's basically it. When you're incarnating with accumulated mass, you're Superman or Superwoman. You've got the crystals inside you, and all you have to do is pop them into the little portals and speak to your guidance. If you're a newer soul on that path, you haven't accumulated, that's what it means by new soul. You haven't accumulated that much mass within your individualized pathway. So therefore, you haven't got to that point yet where you can do that. But that is there, available for every soul. It will depend how you've conducted your incarnations. If you've had multiple incarnations and not much learning has taken place, then when you incarnate again, you're not holding that mass. It's not like you're starting again through Regenesis, but you are incarnating again with low mass, low memory fields. You haven't accumulated enough. But when you start to accumulate through creativity, through knowledge, through learning, through experience, whatever it is, that remains with you. So that's really what this is about. It's about accumulating knowledge and memory and light through multiple incarnations. So my reply was, all higher dimensional souls are fully aware of the possibility of getting caught up in 3D. Those caught in the forced reincarnational wheel may not be aware as at that level as it's 4D. However, I wouldn't necessarily call it a risk. We can use other words to explain it. It's just the way it is, even though, yes, it's a risk. It's the way it is when one does not hold memory. And the questioner went on to say that they weren't fully aware of this when they took the juice. It seems really unfair, saying it's a choice point. But I do understand it's a subconscious choice. So many subconscious choices led up to humanity being free because we didn't know we were controlled and manipulated and puppeted. So that was the question, or rather a continuation of the question as a statement. And I replied and said, yes, and all this has been previously discussed in the Regenesis videos that I have done. I will say, however, it's not just a subconscious choice. Important to know, it is not just a subconscious choice. It's an actual physical conscious choice. No one was literally forced. If they had been, and some rare few may well have been literally forced, then that wouldn't be a choice point. Situations would be different there, and that's been discussed in the Regenesis videos. The choice point takes place at conscious level. So yes, you've got those who are forced that will potentially take a different pathway here. There will be a different energy accumulated, karma, if you will. And it's the same with those who line up with placebo and yet make the same choice as those who do not. And that's discussed as well. So I'll just point out what these Regenesis videos are. And perhaps if you are really interested in this topic, you can go back to these videos and really have a look at them. Most of them were uploaded in September of 2021. So we have End Times Juice Choice Point, Regenesis or Free Will Individualisation for Ascension. That was uploaded in September of 2021. And then there's the one I've already referenced, Apple Juice as Exit Point from 26,000-year Ascension Cycle. That's the one that contains information using the example of Amadeus and Granada. Then there's Quantum Wizardry in Memory Harvesting, 5D Polarity and Placebo Juice. That was also uploaded in September of 2021, because I got all this information coming through around that time. Another video, Questions on Regenesis and Ascension, also uploaded in September 2021. Now, this particular one, Questions on Regenesis and Ascension, the PDF has been made available on my website, magentapixie.com, for download. So you can go on there and actually look at the articles tab, and you will see Questions for the 9 on Regenesis and Ascension as a PDF. So you can read that and study it slowly rather than listening to the transmission, listening to the video. You can read the question and answers as a PDF. Another one that touches on this subject is Twin Flame Pluto Return 22/2/22 Gateway, February 22nd, 2022. That touches on this. And then the most recent video, which was uploaded just a few days ago, Morphogenetic Memory and the Juice Hijack, the Grand Cycle. That was uploaded on April 29th. So that's also touching on this subject. There's another one I would also recommend watching, and that's Phase Locked DNA into the Trifurcation of 2031. That was uploaded in March of 2021. It's not about Regenesis specifically, but it does sit within this whole topic. So I would also recommend looking at that as well. So next question. Can you please explain the differences between reincarnation and regenesis? So I passed this one over to the 9 because I just felt that they would explain this better than me. I know the differences between reincarnation and regenesis, but because there's an overlap, I presented this to the 9, and this is what they said. Whilst there are similarities within these two concepts, and indeed much can be spoken of regarding these two complex and interrelated subjects, we can say that reincarnation is the continuation of incarnations in physicality for a soul matrix, where memories on a linear level are held within the fields of that soul matrix, incarnating again and again with the same geometric matrix configuration, reconditioned and tweaked for the new incarnation, yet holding the same foundational geometry and soul blueprint with memories, experiences, and graduation markers intact. I think the most important word here is continuation. This is a continuation. Regenesis is the process that occurs at planetary end times or completion of the grand cycle, whereby the incarnated soul has not accumulated enough quantum convergence charge or blue starfire for Stargate ascension, or indeed ascension through the collective's piggyback failsafe system. The soul, therefore, cannot hold the matrix configuration, and thus the memories, and that soul moves through a recycling process where they move back into the cosmic consciousness soup, and new souls are generated from that plasma field as new cosmic eggs or inception sparks, moving into reality back at the point of innocence as they move once again into an individualization and ascension pathway. We are the white-winged collective consciousness of 9. So that is what they said when it comes to the difference between reincarnation and regenesis. So reincarnation is continuation and regenesis is recycling, if you will, beginning again, rebirth. One thing the 9 did mention here is not accumulated enough quantum convergence charge or blue starfire for Stargate ascension, or indeed ascension through the collective's piggyback fail-safe system. I'd just like to mention what that is. So ascension, if you haven't accumulated enough quantum convergence charge, blue starfire, mass of individualization within the DNA, then you can't go through Stargate ascension, which is basically you create your own ascension from the individualized point of view. But you may have enough quantum convergence charge, enough mass of individualization and blue starfire to ascend, but you can't create your own ascension from the individualized point of view, but you can go through collective ascension. The reason why it's called a piggyback fail-safe system is you ride on the energies of others that can, and they have come in with a soul contract to take you through this. This is what it means when spiritual teachers will say, you reincarnated back here, back in time, because you've been through this before to help souls to reincarnate, to ascend rather, not reincarnate, to help souls ascend. You've come back to lead others through this, to help them ascend. You literally do that when you are able to hold your own quantum convergence charge, blue starfire energy. You're creating a piggyback system where others who are in alignment with you, in alignment with your energy, with the collective energy, can jump onto that piggyback fail-safe system and go through collectively. They wouldn't be able to do it without you. You could do it on your own. You're ready to ascend by yourself. So if the collective was not ascending, you'd still be ascending. That's the Christed line, the Christed pathway. You would still ascend on your own. People have been ascending since the beginning of time. This is a collective ascension. So those who are unable to ascend on their own, who haven't quite accumulated enough of that mass or individualization, they don't have that charge, but they have enough to go through collective ascension. So there's ascension and there's Stargate ascension, which are the words the 9 use. You'll have other teachers using different words. I believe that Stargate ascension is also known as accelerated ascension, but really it's individualized ascension. That's what it is. You're doing it on your own as a leader through this, and others, you take others with you willingly in service. That's what you incarnated for. So if you're following all this really quite well and you completely understand every word I'm saying, then that's who you are. If you're not quite getting there, but you're learning, then you are potentially still going through ascension. And it doesn't matter whether you're in a piggyback system or whether you're leading the system. That it makes no difference. The point is the positive polarization collective group go through this, as many souls as possible. But we're in a hijack system with another group who want the opposite. And that's the journey we're undertaking at the moment. So that was the Nine's reply to that question. Can you explain the differences between reincarnation and regenesis? So another question here. You did say, or the Nine did say, that if you take placebo juice, then you would not go through regenesis. How is this the case when they made the same choice as those who were given real, actual juice? This has been responded to before, but I will touch on this again, as this is something that is being asked of me quite a lot, so people aren't grasping this concept. So this is my reply. It's highly unlikely that 2, 3, 4 or more juices taken would all be placebo. Each subsequent juice taken narrows that possibility. For those who did receive placebo, then they would not go through regenesis as long as they don't keep on taking juice and narrowing the chances for placebo, which is like playing Russian roulette, to be honest. It's a chance, and it's a chance that's narrowing all the time. The same choice point is made from the physical perspective. That's correct. But synchronicity and alignment to ascension has overridden that physical choice point, as alignment with the original blueprint has drawn them into a reality for ascension through synchronicity and magnetic alignment to that original blueprint. So that's the choice. It's still a choice, but it's been made at that point. And within the physical reality, the guidance system is assisting because they're lining up with ascension, even though they've made the choice to have juice. So we've got like a mixed vibration here. I've chosen the positive to help people and get rid of this kooky, but at the same time, they're putting out esoteric, spiritual, multidimensional energy as well. So just one juice, there's a high chance of those individuals being drawn into placebo. They get another chance. It's like a free pass, if you will. You know, you can make a bit of a mistake, but we're going to let it go, seeing as all of this other energy is so full of light, if you will. But the more they keep choosing juice, that takes that synchronicity and that guidance down, because they keep doing the same thing. You have to commit to not. It's like that's the end. So chances are individuals have had one juice and made a full commitment to no more and are utterly in service to the spiritual path. Chances are that's placebo. And I believe back in 2020, we were looking at around 30% roughly, it's hard to say, of placebo juices, with 70% real juices. But I go on to say, you know, that has gone down. So I go on to say here, each subsequent choice narrows this alignment. The taking of one, or in extremely rare cases, 2 placebo juices is lined up with that soul due to the open heart and activated energy fields and light codes being more predominant than the choice point. Placebo juice is now much reduced today. We're just coming into May 2022. Most juices available now are mostly real, with the odd placebo batch now at around 10%. So anyone taking them now, well, I mean, if you go and have your first one now and you're lining up with that synchronicity, chances are you could still get a placebo. But that Russian roulette game you're playing, the stakes are higher, if you can see what I mean by that analogy. So these are all the questions that I've put together for this presentation today. And I really hope that this has gone some way in explaining this concept more, because some people feel that my information is not in alignment with other spiritual teachers who are saying you can ascend, that juice doesn't affect ascension. And as I've explained, that's true from the higher perspective, but we must look at the linear journey. and look at all the eventualities. So if you're not aligning with this information, all I can say is this is the information that I have been given from the 9. I'm here to deliver that information, and how you feel about this information and what you choose to do with it is completely up to you. And I would say take what resonates and leave the rest. That's your pathway. You are an individual going through your own meaningful subjective experience. And my information to you is just one part of many, many, many other pieces of information and knowledge. So my aim here is simply to explain and assist with this really quite difficult concept that is so very important to us right now. So I'd just like to say thank you everyone for listening, and I'll be back with more videos. Take care. Bye.